It's not something we hear so much as feel. A voice that says, don't go that way, don't catch that flight, don't leave home today.
Hey everyone, let me ask you something. What kind of man makes the most powerful legends in Hollywood uncomfortable without ever raising his voice? Clint Walker was that man. He didn't shout, he didn't threaten, and he never fought for attention. And that silence, it terrified people who were used to controlling everything. During the golden age of Hollywood, when careers were built on ego, intimidation, and crushing rivals, Clint Walker walked onto sets like he had nothing to lose. And that made him dangerous. By the late 1950s and into the 1960s, Clint Walker wasn't just another actor. He was a presence, a towering figure in westerns, action films, and war dramas who looked authentic without trying. Directors trusted him. Crews respected him. Audiences believed every word he spoke. But behind the cameras, something darker was unfolding. Silent wars, power games, manipulation with lights, camera angles, and whispered insults meant to put him in his place. And here's where it turned shocking. Among all the egos, all the rivalries, and all the legendary names Clint Walker encountered, there was one man he truly hated more than anyone else. Not disliked, not tolerated, hated. So much that Clint made a decision so extreme it stunned an entire film set and froze production in its tracks. Stay with me, because when you hear what happened, you'll never look at Hollywood legends the same way again. In 1968, on a scorching film set in Arizona, one of those battles finally exploded into public shock. Cameras were ready, the crew stood by. Clint Walker delivered just 37 seconds of dialogue opposite a co-star. Then, without raising his voice or creating a scene, he stopped, turned around, and walked off set. The director froze. Crew members stared in disbelief. Production was shut down for 3 full days while the studio scrambled to contain the disaster. When executives finally reached Clint, his response was short, calm, and devastating. He said he would rather be unemployed than spend one more second acting with that man. That sentence rippled through Hollywood like a gunshot. For a man known for patience and professionalism, it was a line drawn in stone. One of the earliest cracks in Clint Walker's patience came from Burt Lancaster, a man whose legend was matched only by his need for control. Lancaster believed every set was his classroom and every actor his student. He lectured relentlessly, correcting posture, breathing, eye movement, and emotional tone, whether advice was requested or not. Clint Walker became his favorite subject. Before scenes, Lancaster would place a hand on Clint's shoulder and begin instructing him with the authority of a self-appointed master. But beneath the guidance was insecurity. Whenever a director praised Clint, Lancaster interfered. He demanded retakes, adjusted camera angles, and reasserted dominance. The breaking point came during an emotional climax when Clint delivered a performance so powerful that the entire set applauded. Before the director could even speak, Lancaster stepped into the frame, reenacted the scene himself, and declared that Clint had done it wrong. Clint responded quietly, saying that if he needed a teacher, he would have gone to acting school. Lancaster stormed off set, humiliated. The two men never worked together again. If Lancaster tried to dominate through lectures, Steve McQueen fought with something more insidious: light. In 1960s Hollywood, McQueen earned a reputation as the light thief, a man who could subtly reposition himself to steal focus the moment the camera rolled. He always knew where the lens was, where the light hit hardest, and how to shift half a step to push a co-star into shadow. Clint Walker terrified McQueen without trying. His presence alone threatened McQueen's dominance. The result was a quiet war. Lighting adjustments were demanded, camera angles were manipulated, wardrobe details were interfered with. There were even whispers that makeup artists were instructed to apply oil to Clint's face to disrupt lighting. In one scene, McQueen allegedly demanded his light be increased while Clint's was reduced. On screen, McQueen appeared sharp and dominant, while Clint faded into shadow. The resentment never faded. Clint later refused to speak McQueen's name in interviews and made it clear he would never work with him again. Then came Yul Brynner, a man obsessed with authority, height, and visual dominance. Brynner demanded absolute control on set. No actor was allowed to wear higher heels, stand closer to the camera, or appear taller than him. On a Western set, Clint Walker arrived wearing a wide-brimmed cowboy hat that suited the role perfectly. When Brynner saw it, he ordered the hat cut down by 2 centimeters. The reason was obvious to everyone. Clint didn't argue. Instead, he played a quieter game. During breaks, he stood on higher ground. He positioned his body so that Brynner had to look up when addressing him. When Brynner snapped that Clint would never be famous, Clint calmly replied that the audience would decide that. Power failed. Presence won.
Lee Marvin was different. He didn't fight for light or height. He fought for pain. A former Marine, Marvin believed real suffering produced real emotion. He drank between takes, acted without warning, and laughed when others were hurt. During a barroom brawl scene, despite repeated safety warnings, Marvin attacked Clint before the director even called action, smashing him into a window. Glass shattered. The set went silent. Marvin laughed and demanded another take. Clint stood up slowly and told him he wasn't there to be a punching bag. That was the end. Clint completed the film, but demanded never to work with Marvin again. Even Marvin learned that day that madness could not intimidate dignity. The clash with John Wayne carried the weight of a legend. Wayne wasn't just an actor. He was a symbol of the Western genre and a man whose influence could reshape productions. He believed no one matched his authority, especially actors who were too handsome or too tall. Clint Walker fit both categories. Wayne openly criticized him, calling him lacking in grit. When Clint calmly dismissed the insult, Wayne's ego erupted. He pressured directors to reduce Clint's close-ups and push him to the edges of frames. When Wayne sneered that Clint should be grateful to stand beside him, Clint replied that he didn't need anyone to prove he was a man. From that moment on, they avoided each other completely. Charlton Heston, whom Clint privately nicknamed the Pharaoh, believed every set should bend to him. During a screen test, when Clint entered the room and towered over everyone, Heston demanded the stage be raised. He even suggested Clint belonged in the background. Clint responded by sitting down, still taller than most in the room, neutralizing Heston without a single insult. The silent victory enraged Heston, who spent days trying to provoke Clint into losing composure. It never worked. With James Coburn, the conflict didn't come from power or authority, but from mockery disguised as humor. Coburn was known on Hollywood sets for imitating voices, gestures, and personalities to entertain himself and draw attention. At first, his behavior seemed playful, even harmless, but over time, Clint Walker became his favorite target. Coburn exaggerated Clint's deep voice, his slow movements, and his calm presence, turning them into a routine meant to get laughs from the crew. What bothered Clint wasn't the jokes themselves, but the intention behind them. The teasing wasn't shared amusement, it was public humiliation. One night, after 14 exhausting hours of filming, the atmosphere on set was tense and fragile. Everyone was drained and eager to finish. That was when James Coburn chose to go too far. In front of the entire crew, he launched into an extended imitation of Clint Walker, mocking his mannerisms and voice with exaggerated flair. Laughter erupted around them. Clint stood silently, absorbing the moment, until something inside him finally snapped. He cursed Coburn out, his voice sharp and unmistakable, then turned and walked off without looking back. The next morning, the decision was final. Clint Walker made it clear he would never work with James Coburn again. A partnership that could have lasted years ended over one cruel joke. The final test came with Kirk Douglas, a master of psychological manipulation rather than open ridicule. Douglas was famous for frame cutting, subtly stepping closer to the camera to reduce a co-star's presence. During one scene, he whispered that Clint Walker was too big for the frame. Clint calmly replied that a decent man doesn't undermine others. From that moment on, Kirk Douglas never challenged him again. Looking back, the men Clint Walker clashed with weren't weak. They were powerful, talented, and legendary, but they were also afraid of being overshadowed, afraid of losing control, afraid of a man who didn't need tricks to command attention. Clint Walker didn't fight for light, height, or dominance. He fought for respect. And in doing so, he exposed the truth behind Hollywood's golden age, that sometimes the fiercest battles aren't fought on screen, but in silence, shadow, and restraint. If you want more untold Hollywood stories, the quiet wars, the egos behind the legends, and the moments they never wanted revealed, stay here. Like the video, share it, and subscribe, because the shadows still remember everything. Thanks for watching.